a she's an attorney. She's a litigator in Houston, and then Josiah. He's a physician, an urgent care physician in Las Vegas, and this is my youngest son Ben. He's in private equity in New York City, and these are our two grandchildren, Abreen and Philip's children. So this is my family, and it's a great blessing for me to have this family. This is a list of the companies that we've started in the past 10 years. Prior to this, we used to license a lot of technologies to large companies, and that turned out to be a way to make very little money because the technology would kind of get buried in those companies. So we started companies, and then those could then work through a business alliance with the big companies. One of the things we do is graphene quantum dots. That's in a company called Dots, and that is now a public company. There's Weebit. This is oxide computer memory. This is something that Dr. Jun Yao developed. He was the one who discovered this. I didn't discover it. Jun Yao did. And it really turned out to be a tremendous system. Interestingly enough, this, you can get lots of publications, but this was written about on the front page of the New York Times, I believe in somewhere around 2010. It was written about, and that's very hard to do, to get your PhD work to be summarized on the front page of the New York Times. But that was his accomplishment. So that's in this company called Weebit. And then we have a company called Zeta Energy, which makes batteries. It's a battery company. It's here in Houston. It's still a small company. It has about, I think maybe about 70 employees, something like that. Neurocords works on graphene nanoribbons for spinal cord repair. Xariant is a pancreatic cancer treatment in phase 2 clinical trials. It's to treat pancreatic cancer. Pleozyme is a treatment for Down syndrome, traumatic brain injury, stroke, and dementia. It's a company here in Houston that I've started with some of my collaborators who are scientists in the medical center. There's Roswell Biotechnologies, that's for DNA sequencing. Universal Matter, it makes graphene. We developed a method, one of my students named Dewey Long developed a method to make graphene. And they are now, Universal Matter is now making 1 ton per day capability in their pilot facility. So they can make a lot of graphene this way. And we just take coal and you put a high voltage and high current across the coal, and it converts it breaks all the carbon-carbon bonds, and then they reassemble as the thermodynamically most stable system, which is graphene. The next one is a very exciting company that's called Flash Metals USA, Inc. It was taken public through a reverse merger with Metallium. And what they do is they take electronic waste. You can work off the ores, but there's a much higher concentration of electronic waste. And you flash it and you get the metals out by capitalizing on the free energy of formation of the metal chloride. And we can get, for example, rare earth elements from coal, fly ash, urban mining from electronic waste, lithium from batteries, as well as recycling the manganese, the cobalt. So all of these different metals we can get out. And that's a company, it's being set up here in Houston, and that's a public company as well. Then there's United Standard Materials Corp. That's a company that's started by one of my students, one of my former students. He was an undergraduate with me. He went off to Stanford University for graduate school for 1 year and then left and came back and started this company. And they're working on 1D materials, working on carbon nanotubes using this flash process, as well as capturing the hydrogen from it and one-dimensional silicon carbide wires. Then there's Flash Hydrogen. They're making also silicon carbide, but also graphite is their big thing. They're making battery quality graphite, taking coal products and metallurgical coke and converting it very quickly through this flash process. There's Pattern Materials. This is a laser-induced graphene company. That one is just being launched by one of my former students. Iron Lattice is actually a new one for us, and this is for neuromorphic AI computing devices based on a superlattice structure, and you have compute in memory. So the same device that does memory does the computation, and so you're not bussing information back and forth. So it's actually a million times lower energy than in memory than flash, and it's 1,000 times lower energy than DRAM, but it's non-volatile. And so it's a great advantage, and it's to really lower the amount of energy that's going to be needed in data centers. URI Biotech, this is taking our molecular machines and using it in cardiovascular care, the treatment of the cardiovascular system. Hegena Inc., that is making MXenes. Some of you might have heard of MXenes, these inorganic two-dimensional materials, other inorganics, and using this concept of flash within flash. And then our newest is TerraJoule Inc., that is flashing soil for removing of PFAS, which are these toxic compounds. So that gives you an idea of the breadth of the things that we've done in the group and that we're doing. So a lot of things going on. But I want to change gears a little bit, and I want to talk to you about some historical evidence, because when I talk about faith, I don't mean what Americans call a blind faith, that if you have no evidence, you just say, okay, I believe it based on faith. No, I'm talking about a faith that's based on evidence. Just like we have faith that the physical constants in the world are going to remain the same, the speed of light. We have faith that these things, the dipole moment of water. We have faith that that is going to remain constant everywhere in the universe. There is no guarantee that it does, but we believe based on evidence that it does. And so that's the type of faith that I'm talking about, a faith that's based on evidence. Again, the speed of light does not have to remain constant, but it does throughout the universe, and so we can consider that a constant and use it as a constant in all of our calculations. So this is the type of faith. It's a faith based on evidence. If you went into the religion department there at UMass Amherst and you asked any of the religious scholars, these are religious scholars and academic religious scholars, doesn't matter what their background is from, you could ask them certain questions and they would all agree upon it. So you could ask them this. They would all say that Jesus died by crucifixion. There was a man named Jesus and he died by crucifixion. Some of them will even suggest that this is the most solid fact of that period in history. So something that happened in the first century, so over 2,000 years ago, they would say that this is the most solid fact. And why is it the most solid fact from that era in history? Because there's so much written about it. We have over 5,000 Greek manuscripts of the New Testament. But this is also written on mosaics. It's written in glass. It's written on coins that they find. So there's very strong evidence that there was a man named Jesus and he died by crucifixion, meaning that he died by being hung on a cross. The disciples of Jesus asserted that Jesus rose from the dead and appeared to them. Many of those disciples died for that assertion. So these religious scholars, they would all agree that the disciples of Jesus had said that Jesus rose from the dead, that they put Jesus in the grave, and that 3 days later, so this is not a near-death experience where somebody's flatlines for a minute or two and is resuscitated. No, this is a man who was in a grave for 3 days and comes back alive. And he appeared to his disciples. And these guys believed it so strongly that they died for that assertion. Number three, they would say that certain unbelievers, such as Jesus' brother James, and even enemies of Jesus, such as Paul, asserted that Jesus rose from the dead and appeared to them. They too died for that assertion. So even enemies of Jesus saw him risen from the dead, and they died for that assertion. So this is some of the facts based on evidence that they would embrace, that they would hold on to. The Bible says that if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. This is a very bold statement. That if there's two parts here, there's the confession with the mouth, and then there's the belief in the heart that God raised him from the dead. And then you'll be saved. To be saved means to forever be with God. How can you forever be with God? You have to believe that Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. But how can any educated person, how could I as a scientist, or how could any educated person believe that somebody has risen from the dead? Well, by looking at the evidence. By looking at the evidence, and you examine the evidence and you see that Jesus raised from the dead. I'm not going to convince you of that now, but I'm going to give you an offer, because there is faith that is based solely upon evidence. And we have the evidence that's written in the New Testament documents, but also evidence that's written in many documents beyond the New Testament. Documents that go beyond the New Testament, but from that era, from that period in time, these documents were written. And so there's a lot of evidence there for these things. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you an offer, is that you can contact me, tour@drjamestour.org, and I will tell you about how I became a man of faith. And you can, faith in Jesus, and you can hear the evidence that I have for this. And I will go over that with you, because I know, I've worked with Chinese my entire career. In fact, the first Chinese visiting scholars started coming to the United States when I was an undergraduate. I started to see them. They just started coming when I was about a junior or a senior, I think my junior or senior year. They just started coming to the U.S. They were all men in their 40s, they all wear the common blue jacket and the common cap, and they started coming. And so I befriended them, and they became friends. And then the year that I started graduate school was the year that Chinese graduate students started coming. So first they were visiting scholars, but then after a couple of years, the Chinese graduate students started coming to the United States. And the first year I started graduate school, they started coming, and I started befriending them. So China at that time was very different than China is today, as some of you might know. And it's interesting. I've even published papers with some of them who had started graduate school in that first crop of graduate students that started coming to the U.S. And later on, when they became professors and they stayed here in the United States, I even published papers with some of them. My first graduate student was a Chinese woman, Ruilian Wu. That was 36 years ago, the first person to join my group. And so I've been with Chinese, and generally, my group generally runs around 30 people, sometimes more, sometimes less, but always more than half of them are Chinese. So I've been around a lot of Chinese, and what I know about Chinese is that they're much more open to speak to me in private. So this is why I invite with you to write to me, tour@drjamestour.org. And we will get together, and I will share with you. It takes about an hour, and I will share with you the evidence for Jesus Christ rising from the dead. I will share with you evidence that you will walk away from that time also understanding about faith, based on evidence, faith in Jesus Christ, and these things based on evidence. I want to be able to share that with you. So what I urge you to do, not now, but after you go home this evening, I want you to write to me, tour@drjamestour.org. I'll get that email, and we will set up a meeting. And I will, some of you, I might even be able to meet with you tomorrow by Zoom. We'll correspond, and we'll set up a meeting, and I'll meet with, I'll be working in my office tomorrow, but I will set aside a time to meet with at least one of you, maybe even two tomorrow, and then but again, this is all one-on-one, and then others of you that write to me will set up over the next week or two. We'll set up an appointment and to meet together by Zoom, and let me share with you why I embrace the resurrection of Jesus Christ. How is it that a scientist can embrace the resurrection of Jesus Christ? How can this be? And I don't come from a Christian background. I know many of you don't come from Christian backgrounds. I didn't come from a Christian background, not at all. And this is something that I embraced later on in life. And actually, when I was 18, when I was a student, I embraced this. And then I grew in this, and it's been a big part of my life all of these years. And I'd like to be able to share this with you. So you reach out to me, and I will respond to you. If you can't remember this email, what you can do is just Google James Tour, and my email will pop up. It might give you my email for the university, tour@rice.edu. That's fine too. And you can connect with me. You can see all of my social media is on all of these different platforms. I have a lot on YouTube. I've been posting more recently on Facebook, on Instagram, X, Rumble, TikTok, LinkedIn. So you can wherever you look. I'm not on WeChat because if I put things on WeChat, sometimes they disappear. So I can't maintain things well on WeChat. But on these other platforms, you'd be able to access some of my content. My content sometimes is Bible studies, but also I have a lot on the intersection of faith and science. I talk a lot about origin of life, how we're clueless on the origin of life, and also I speak about. In fact, I've taken an entire course on nanotechnology. It was an undergraduate course, but it was a general nanotechnology that covered a lot of different research out of my group over the years. And in fact, there's one whole lecture on carbon to silicon oxide switching devices that focuses in on Professor Jun Yao's work when he was a graduate student, how that led to a company. And so in each one of those different lectures, I talk about technologies and how we transition those to companies. And in fact, I have a lecture on how you take a discovery out of academics and how you launch it into a company. I go through the steps to take you through that to help you do those transitions. So if any of you ever want to think of us doing a startup company someday, watch those lectures. So it's just 13 lectures, and they're on nanotechnology. With one lecture is on startup companies, and then I think the closing lecture is on how to propel your career. So with that, if you don't mind, I just want to say a prayer for each of you right now. I want to pray for you, and then I'll open it up for questions. Let me pray for you. If you just bow your head with me. Father, I thank you for this time that I've had with these students, and I pray, Lord, your blessing to be upon them. And Lord, I pray that many would be touched by the love of Jesus, and many would be drawn. Father, I pray that several would reach out to me as a result of this time, and that I'd be able to share with them why I embrace the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and their hearts would open just as well. Father, I pray that you would do a work in them just as you did in Professor Jun Yao's life. Father, change their hearts because I know it will be good for them, giving them life in Jesus Christ. And Father, I commit them to you, and I ask your blessing be upon them in the name of Jesus. Amen. Okay, with that, I will escape from these slides and open it up and take any questions that you might have.
All right, I think we have about 10 minutes, and certainly if we have more questions, I think we can accommodate. So if you have any kind of question, feel free to ask. Oh, here's one. Yeah.
Hello, Dr. Tour. I got a question. So back to 80s, did you talk to Chinese students about Jesus? What's their reaction? I'm just curious.
Yeah, in fact, it was prior to the 80s. It was, I think, 1979, 77, yeah, 1979. It was 79 or 80, right about that time that they started coming. I started talking to the visiting scholars. They were very shy because they felt that they could get in a lot of trouble. And so they did not want to talk about these things at all in groups. Privately, they were also very, very, they were worried that they would be reported upon And so they were not as open. When the graduate students started coming in 1981, I believe it was, right around in there, that they were a little bit more open, but again, only one-on-one, in groups, never. And again, they were very worried that they would get in trouble. And but then individually, I was able to share with them, and individually, I saw them coming to know the Lord. And but again, they were just coming out of a whole different generation of China at the time. And but I always had wonderful relationships with them, and I always found them to be extremely friendly.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Other questions?
Hi. So I looked you up on your Wikipedia page, and it says you were a born-again Christian and in graduate school. So I wanted to ask, how was your turn in faith? Why did you come to believe in Christianity again in graduate school, and what made you start that process? Because it says that during the rest of your life, it wasn't such a big part of your life. So
You
how
mean
did that happen?
before that? Yeah. No, it wasn't a part of my life at all prior to my coming at the age of 18. So then at the age of 18, it became a very big part of my life. So what happened was I was doing laundry in the laundry room one day. It was right after I started in college. And a guy shared with me, I got talking with a person. It was the first load of laundry that I ever did myself because my mother always did it for me when I was at home. So it was in August of my freshman year, a couple weeks after I arrived on campus. And as I got talking with this guy, I asked him, what do you want to do when you graduate? He said he wanted to be a missionary. And I had never met a missionary before. I come from a Jewish home. I think I say, Yo Tai Ren is how I describe it. And and I'm still Jewish. I mean, I'm ethnically Jewish. That will never change, but I believe Jesus is the Messiah. And so he shared with me the gospel, and I ended up believing, not immediately, but after a couple of months. And it was an amazing thing that happened to me. I was in my room all alone. This guy had shared with me in August, and here it was now November. It was November 7th, 1977. 1977, November 7th. And I was all alone in my room, and I got down on my knees, and I'm not sure why I did that, what prompted me to do that. Because most Christians I had seen would sit when they pray. Most Jews, we would stand when we pray. And I got down on my knees and I said, Lord, forgive me because I am a sinner. I was deeply convicted of certain sins that I had committed. And I asked God to forgive me. And I felt this peace of God just come right over me, just a tremendous sense of peace. And then all of a sudden, to my right, Jesus was standing. And it was not a clear optical thing nor an auditory thing, but his presence was so strong, just 1 meter away from me. And so I was already on my knees. I turned toward him. I put my face to the ground. And it was like liquid love was just pouring over me. There was no judgment. There was no condemnation. It was just kindness, something I had never known before like this, just pouring over me. And I was just weeping. And I didn't hear any spoken words, but just the kindness and the love of God. I'd never had a day like that before in my life. I never had a day like that after in my life. That day has been unique in my life. And when I got up from that time, I just was wiping my face and I couldn't stop thinking about Jesus. I was thinking about Jesus all the time. I would even dream about Jesus at night. In my dreams, I'd be telling people about Jesus. So here's a Jewish kid telling people about Jesus in his dreams. And I didn't know what that meant, but now I know that was a prophecy. He was giving me a picture in my dreams of what my life was going to become. Because every week I'm speaking to people about Jesus all the time. And that's what my life became. And then the guy who had shared with me back in the laundry room back in August, he saw me walking on the floor 2 weeks later. I didn't tell anybody. I mean, this is a very strange thing. What am I going to say? And he said to me, he says, Jim, if you receive Jesus in your heart, I said, I think I have. Why do you ask? He said, you haven't stopped smiling for weeks. I mean, you're smiling all the time now. Something had changed in my life. And I asked him, how can I stay close to God? Like, I don't want this feeling to go away. He said, if you read your Bible every day, you'll stay close to God. If you don't, you won't. And so for 47 years, I've read the Bible every day. I mean, every day of my life for 47 years. Even when I had the flu, when I had COVID, when I was in the hospital, getting operations, I read the Bible every day, and I've stayed close to God. So that's kind of a very quick version of how I came to the Lord.
And can I ask another question?
Sure.
Sorry. So you said how your family was like traditionally Jewish, and
Yes.
how did you balance like that aspect of your life, like having your family believe in a different faith than you? Because my family hasn't been like really religious at all, and I'm kind of scared like starting this new chapter.
Yeah. So, for some reason, I wasn't very scared about telling them. I had such an experience with Jesus that I remember going, so this was in November 7th. I remember going home Thanksgiving. I told my cousin that I've received Jesus, and he was like, you're Jewish. You can't receive Jesus, And I remember I told my mother and father, they didn't say anything. They told me years later how much it had hurt them when I had said that to them. And my family was not religious in the sense of practicing Judaism. We were Jews. We would only go to the synagogue about twice a year, so we were called secular Jews. But we were not deeply religious Jews. And I told everybody. I mean, I didn't know that I shouldn't. And years later, it was probably 15. Almost 20 years later, 17 years later, my mother came to know the Lord at the age of 72. She came to accept Jesus. And then my father, I prayed for him for years and years and years. 45 years I prayed for him. And then on his deathbed, 5 days before he passed away, he gave his life to Jesus. So I prayed for them for a long time. I still have a brother and sister, and I pray that they too come to know the Lord. So that's kind of been my testimony. But this fear that you have, you're going to have to press ahead and go ahead with it. Jesus said, if anyone is ashamed of me and my word in the sinful and perverse generation, I will be ashamed of him when I come in the glory of my Father and his holy angels. So this is something that we have to do. And I understand that it can be somewhat difficult, but it's something that you're going to have to do. And the longer you wait, the harder it's going to get. So I would say just go ahead and do it and make bold testimony for the Lord, because what's going to happen is what happened in my family. They saw my life. They saw how it changed my life. They saw the type of woman that I married, the type of home that I had, how I was raising my children, and it deeply touched them, that they saw the effects of this in my life. So the Bible actually doesn't give much patience to people not sharing their faith. In fact, in John chapter 12, it says, many even of the rulers believed on Jesus, but they were not confessing him for fear that they would be thrown out of the synagogue. So to be thrown out of the synagogue meant you had no social interactions anymore. So this was a real fear. So you'd think God understands, but the next verse says, because they loved the approval of men more than the approval of God. So they wanted men's approval rather than God's approval. So it seems like God is pretty intent on this, that this is something you're going to have to do. You're going to have to tell your family what Jesus has done in your life, okay?
Oh, one more. So
No, wait a minute. I asked you a question. I said, okay?
I still don't believe in Jesus, but sure.
Oh, okay. So
So
you're going to have to send me an email. We'll take care of that tomorrow,
Yeah,
okay? We'll take care of it tomorrow. So you send me an email and
Are you busy?
it'll be done.
I won't ask anymore if you're busy.
I think we should give other people, chance.
Yeah, you call me tomorrow and ask me, okay? You send me an email. We'll get together.
Yeah. So any other people? Dr. Tu said that the new generation is much more, outspoken than the old one. So I wanted to see that.
Yeah. This is like for many of you, this is going to be your only opportunity to ask me a question, to ask Jim Tour a question. And, you can go back, you could WeChat to your friends in China that you spoke to me.
Right.
This is your opportunity.
Students even conduct classes once a week. So that time is very, very special. He can spend the time with us.
Yeah.
This what his commitment to God. If you write an email to him, he will have 1 hour with you, in somewhere in Zoom or some kind of style. I don't know.
Zoom.
But if you have question, just go ahead. Only about 10 minutes. I think we can use the Chinese to ask question, and then Brother Yao Jun can translate.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I will try. Yeah.
June can do it. He's very good at this.
There's one here. All right.
Do you think the Bible has been co-opted or like corrupted by Satan in any way?
No, not at all.
Is Paul a real apostle?
Okay, there's two questions there. Let me answer the first one first. No, not at all, because we have so many different copies, which is a verification of it. And it's very hard to change copies that were being written and shared all over. So we have as soon as these things were written, remember, these were letters. Originally, it was not a compendium. It was not a whole book. These were letters. The New Testament were letters that were being transferred and sent to different churches. And then they would make copies and send to the next church and the next church. So by having so many multiple handwritten copies, you can compare them and you can see even where there were scribal errors, and then you can quickly correct them because you're matching it up. And so because, like I said, we have 5,000 copies in Greek, which was the original language that it was written in. And then as far as the Old Testament, that was kept so pure by the Jews throughout. And then what happened is, many people thought like you thought, like you're suggesting. But then in the late 1940s and early 1950s, the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. So this is in the lifetime of some people who are even in that room right now. The Dead Sea Scrolls were found in Qumran in Israel. And there were many copies of the Dead Sea Scrolls, or many copies of scrolls and pieces and full scrolls. And every book of the Old Testament is in there, and they date back to 150 BC. So even before Jesus' time, these are from that time. And by secular dating to 150 BC, and the text that they were reading back then in 150 BC is identical to the text that we have now, almost identical. Now, there are some differences in that Hebrew, they've put in vowels since then. So in the original writing, there were no vowels, but that's the same with many Semitic scripts, that the vowels came later. But scholars can read these without vowels. In fact, I used to write without vowels because my first code that I learned on was I used a PDP-11, and the old IBM code. They taught us to write code without using vowels, because we would save bits that way. So we would only use consonants, not vowels. And so that's how it was written. We have the entire book of Isaiah, which is this 66 chapters, this long book, and it's identical to what we have today. So there are no scholars who would ever take the position that you just suggested. Only novices come out with that. Scholars, this has all been dealt with. Secondly, is Paul really an apostle? And the answer is yes, because the requirement for an apostle is they had to have seen Jesus, the resurrected Jesus. They had to have seen the resurrected Jesus. And Paul saw the resurrected Jesus. And there was no question in the early church that he was an apostle. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Other questions? I wanted to see a Chinese version of question so that I can practice my English translation, you know. Some new face.
Dr. Tor, if you meet someone is atheist, how you approach them? Or you just turn around, walk away?
No, I mean, I treat them as people made in the image of God. I'm always try to be nice to people. It's not like if they mention that they're atheists that I turn around and walk away. In fact, most people don't go around saying, hey, I'm an atheist. Hey, I'm an atheist. So I don't know what people are, you know? And if we get to talking, that means we've already established some rapport. If they're telling me that they're an atheist, that we already have some rapport. But I share with atheists all the time. All the time. My mission is to share with people. And if they're atheists, you know, again, I share with them why I embrace these things. And the gospel is extremely powerful. People keep doubting it. I don't doubt this thing. It says the gospel is the power of God for men to believe. And so I go in with that intent. And so I just give them the simple gospel message, simple over and over and over and over again. And I see every week, I see people coming to the Lord every week by the simple gospel message. This is why some of you're going to have to write to me. We'll meet tomorrow. I will try to meet with I'll have 2 different meetings with the first 2 people that write to me tomorrow. Write to me tonight. I'll set up a meeting time with you, and you don't have classes tomorrow. I have 2 meetings tomorrow, one at 4 p.m. and one at 5 p.m., business meetings. But other than that, I'll be just in my office working. So we'll set up a time to meet, and I'll share with you. I'll probably do one of you in the afternoon and one of you in the evening. And we'll get together. Let me share with you. So, and if you're an atheist, I welcome you. I'll give you the same gospel message. I preach the same to atheists that I do to people who are not atheists. Same message.
Thank you. I think we probably gonna stop here unless someone's gonna have a last minute one. Oh, there's one more. Sorry. Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Tor. I'm speaking for many of the brothers and sisters here because me, in my family, I only have mom. Mom is a Christian, but not the rest of the family. I feel like preaching the gospel to my dad is more difficult than to anybody in this world, right? So what is your strategy to approach to family members who are not Christians?
I went through that with my dad as well. It was much easier for me to share with my mom and my mother. But it was my daughter who ended up sharing with my mother that really got her to start pondering these things. And she read the New Testament at my request. She went back and read the Old Testament at my request. But when my daughter was 15 years old, my mother went in her room. She was visiting, and she went in her room, and she spent like 2 hours talking to my daughter. And she came out and she said, that's quite some girl you have. And she was really impressed with my daughter. And it caused her to start reading the Bible again. And she was reading the Bible, The Case for Christ. I don't know where she got that book, and an InterVarsity devotional at the same time. And she came to know the Lord just by reading the scriptures. But my father, he was much less open. As I got older and he got older, I'd still talk to him a little bit about it. And he's always a gentleman. My dad was always a gentleman, but he was not interested. I remember one day I was visiting him for about 4 or 5 days. My family, we had gone to their home and visited them. And so I would read to him. I read him the Gospel according to John, the entire Gospel according to John, over a period of like 3 days. And he only fell asleep like 2 times, which I figured is pretty good. An old man falling asleep, so he wasn't interested in all. And then, in fact, on his deathbed, a week before he died, I said, Dad, could I tell you one more time about this message, why God's what he's done in my life, why Jesus is so important to me? He said, no. He said, I don't want to hear it. He was in a lot of pain at the time. He wasn't in a lot of pain. He was coherently. It was hard for him and things like that. But he said, I really don't want to hear it. He was very weak. And I left that day, and a Jamaican night nurse came, and she led him to the Lord. I had prayed for him. All those years I tried to share with him. He opened up to her that night. she and another nurse held his hands. They prayed together. He raised up his hands. My sister was witness to this thing, and God saved my father. That was 5 days before he passed away. And so it wasn't even me. I tried all those years, and then just some Jamaican night nurse at night. So you pray for your father. You pray, you share as you can, even if it's just little bits of what God's doing in your life, even if it's just for a moment or two, and you trust God just to bring him on into the kingdom. I mean, I just, imagine that 47 years, 45, 47 years I prayed for him, something like that. And 45 years I prayed for him. And he came to the Lord on his deathbed through the witness of a night nurse whose English wasn't even very good, and he received the Lord. So anyway, that's my story.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody wants to catch up on the last minute question? If not, before we thank Dr. Tour again, let me repeat that Dr. Tour has this personal invitation. So if you're touched, if you have any kind of question, send him email tour@drjamestour.org. All right. I told you before, when I was a graduate student, I rarely had a chance to talk to Dr. Tour in person, for more than half hour. So this is a real privilege for you to have a one-on-one meeting with Dr. Tour for 1 hour, right? That's kind of, luxury, total luxury, right, to me. So just send Dr. Tour an email. If you forgot the email, let me know. I can write it down for you, right? So probably Dr. Tour can talk to you in Chinese, since he has lots of Chinese students, right? You must have learned some Chinese. Anyway, Dr. Tour, thank you so much. We certainly wanted to hope to see you again next year.
Thank you.
Probably
God
in
bless.
person, right? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you,
Bye.
Dr. Yeah. 好，那接下去是 Tini 是吗？是 Johnny， right？ Yeah。是 Tini，Yeah。
video 看现在我
对，现在先看 video。
There's a video。
你们好，我是安城华人基督教会牧师王玉庆。安城华人基督教会坐落在麻省梅利的安城，因着神的恩典，